You can see the presentation screen. So we're going to go through, I'm going to do this a little bit differently than some of the other webinars because we're going to be kind of switching back and forth between the tool and this presentation. As I go through each one of these top 5, I want to show them individually. So I was kind of tasked with coming up with a what's new in New York webinar for you guys, and had to narrow it down in order to fit into just an hour. I highly recommend that you guys go check out the ServiceNow New York release notes. You can just type that into Google, it'll get you there. There's a big long list of updates, but these are the top 5 as decided by me. So I hope you agree with my top 5, but you don't have to. All right. So number 1 is the new Now Mobile App. And then we've got the Service Owner Workspace that I think is really cool. The Guided App Creator, also a really slick tool. Then I've got new developer tools as a item in the top 5, but there are actually several new little things that they've added to help the developer that I really like. I'm going to cover that in new developer tools. And then my favorite of the new ones, just because I think it's so neat, is dynamic translation. All right, so let's talk about the Now Mobile App. ServiceNow is very big in pushing this, and they're really trying to get the employee experience to be very similar to how you do social media and the rest of your life, on your phone with predictive text and Siris and Alexas and all of that stuff. So they really are making good strides to that. So we came up with the Now Mobile App. Now the Now Mobile App is basically the service portal in a mobile app. It's got a little bit more things that you can do, but that's the way you can think of it, because it's really geared towards your customers, right? Your requesters, and not really geared towards your fulfillers. Your fulfillers use a product called ServiceNow Agent, which I'll also show you. It can support multiple service catalogs and knowledge bases, just like the service portal can. You download it via the App Store. It works with the agent chat feature, and you can even configure it to work with Siri. All right, so let's take a look at that. All right. So, you guys seeing my BlueStacks mobile emulator? Brittany?
I can see it.
Okay, good. All right, so I've got both of these apps loaded here in this little emulator. But Now Mobile, right? I've already logged in as Luke Wilson here, and it's just going to remember that and log me into my dev server. I've got it configured here as the instance, my dev instance, right? And the idea here is that this is a mobile service portal. Obviously, this can be customized. The colors can change. You have this My Tasks. Don't get confused about this. This is not like assigning a task to Luke Wilson to do necessarily, but there can be things like onboarding tasks, like, did you fill out this? Different ways in some of the flows that you can add tasks that can be done here. Of course, my requests, pretty straightforward. You know what that looks like. Here's an incident that I opened, right? And I can provide updates. If I want to record a video, I can open up the gallery on my phone. I can take a picture with my phone and add it. I can attach a file straight from my phone, add additional comments, all with that nice, easy to use phone feature, right? And then you have basically access to the service catalog, right? Here are all of our different service requests that we can make. Again, just like the service portal, as far as level of functionality is concerned. I can track my requests. And then I have this thing called My Locker. And this is really just showing you what assets are assigned to you, right? All right, my recent services, that sort of thing. All right, this is report an issue. Hold on. My emulator has just gone nuts. Okay. Let's try that. Start over from the top there. So like I said, the basic idea is this is the service portal for a mobile app. Now this is separate from the Now agent, right? And you download them from the Play Store. ServiceNow Mobile versus ServiceNow Agent. ServiceNow Agent looks very similar. At least they try to keep it that way. And this is really a way that you can keep track of instances. You know what? I should have logged in as somebody who actually has stuff assigned to them. Hold on. Right, and you can work on your incidents, assign them, basically everything you need to do, you can do from your phone now with this app. So we got the ServiceNow Mobile and Agent. Mobile's kind of like the service portal and Agent's kind of like the platform version. All right, so what can you do with this? One really neat thing, if we come here, we can control what the navigation bar is going to look like, right? We can control which service catalogs are going to be accessible, if multiple service catalogs or just one. Same thing with knowledge bases. So just like the service portal, you can have multiple knowledge bases, and this is where you configure that. And really, it's all just configured here, how you want the particular search configurations to work, right? People, services, articles. There's a lot of different little options that you can play around with here. All right, that's the Now mobile app. Pretty cool stuff. All right. All right, so the next one is the Service Owner Workspace. So ServiceNow has kind of been moving towards, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Agent Workspace and the Cab Workbench and a few of these other interfaces that they've built. They've kind of built these nice, slick, user-friendly interfaces for a lot of their stuff. Well, the Service Owner Workspace is that new sort of agent workspace or slick interface for service owners. Now it's part of Service Portfolio Management. So you've got a subscription and whatnot to that. And it's like Agent Space, but for service owners. And it allows them to view trends and reports on server performance, and it's almost like a sort of a fancy dashboard. Right, so let's go take a look at what that looks like. So for this one, I think I'm gonna impersonate Luke, my guinea pig. So now under Service Portfolio Management, when you have the plugin enabled, you're looking at the ServiceNow Workspace. And it's one of these nice kind of user interfaces that you're used to seeing, right? And it's looking basically at, the data that you have here in your Service Portfolio Management, your taxonomy nodes, and the services and commitments and a lot of this data. And it's really just a way to look at that data. It gives you the ability to drill down into these services. I don't have a lot of demo data in here, so a lot of these reports are not going to show much, but you can look at trends, related info, any recent impacts or upcoming changes that might impact your service, that sort of thing. Get that error message out of there. And any other information, who subscribes to it, what sort of service offerings you have. Just a nice service owner dashboard so that you can, if I was the SAP guy, I can come and look at my SAP service. All right, that's Service Owner Workspace. Just a neat little UI addition that they've added to Service Portfolio. I like it. All right, next. One day I'm going to get this thing to do this automatically. All right, we went from Service Owner Workspace to Guided App Creator. So if you guys are familiar with ServiceNow, they've also been adding a lot of these guided setup things, different ways, wizards that they've added to help ease your life into what they want you to be doing. So the Guided App Creator is one of them. Now, it's not quite like the other guided setups where it's just a checklist. This is actually a wizard that's stepping you through creating an application. Really neat for people who are new to applications. You can really whip yourself up an application pretty easily with this and without really having to code. That's the other direction they're going in, is they're trying to get to no-code development. It's part of the Studio app. The Studio is the developer studio. Easy to create the basic application. It's wizard. It's not quite like another guided setup. So let's take a look at that. All right. Get out of that. All right. So we open Studio. All right. Oh, whoop. We're still Luke with Wilson. Oh, this is another new feature. You noticed I don't have to go and impersonate myself. It has end impersonation now. Notice that one with New York. I like it. All right, so like ServiceNow has been doing, they like to have these new special interfaces that they've built for all these things, and the Studio is no different. It's built for developers, but you have this create application button, and it's just going to step you through, right? Got a little logo if you want. Put the stop sign in there. All right, you create your app, and it's right. What roles? All right, do I want to use a role? Do I want to create a new role? All right. I can move on, and You can have a workspace for your new app. Super cool. You can have the mobile app for your app, or you can have all the classic or all three, right? With tables, so you can select existing tables or create a new table if you want to for your data, if you want to like extend to the task table or something like that. All right, let's just search for existing tables that you want to include in your application. I'm just going to throw in incident here so we don't have to actually go through creating a new table. All right. Create a new table allows you to, you can go straight from a spreadsheet, you can extend or create a completely new table. You typically, if you're creating a new app, you're extending the task table usually. Right. I was just going to step you through each little part of creating your new app. Of course, my dev server is going to do it slowly. Okay. There we go. So we got field label, field name, field type, and we are adding, and these are all obviously from the extended table, right? And we'll new field, what its name's going to be, what type. This way of building tables and applications really is, man, it's like the Starship Enterprise compared to the old way of doing it, in my opinion. Right. And then once you're done, you've created your new app, and I want to actually close that. Then you can start doing any other things you might want to do with it. Like adding notifications and such. All right, so let's see next. That's Guided App Creator. Nice little wizard to help you out. All right, so the cool new stuff that they've added for developers. So ServiceNow is really investing a lot into the flow designer. So if you're an old school ServiceNow developer like me, you're used to the workflow editor, and that's the way you do things. And maybe you create business rules and stuff like that and whatnot. Well, the flow designer can really take the place of, like, you don't need to do business rules if you've got flows. You can put flows on all sorts of things and trigger them differently. So really, if you haven't gotten to know the flow designer, I urge you to learn it. It's quite powerful. And it's really where ServiceNow is investing in the technology. So there's a couple of updates to the flow designer. One is inline scripting, inbound email triggers, which basically takes the place of inbound actions. So I don't know about you guys, but I've created a large number of inbound actions in my time, but now the flow designer has an inbound email trigger. An email comes in and it kicks off a flow. So it's a bit more powerful than just a inbound action. And in previous versions of the flow designer, when you created a new flow, you ended up with a whole bunch of updates in your update set. They've consolidated that down, so when you create a new flow, it's just one entry in your update set, which is handy. And then they also have the studio, which I showed you a little bit earlier. That's kind of the way that they're going with application development and development in ServiceNow in general, is this studio and the flow designer. So they've added a few. These aren't necessarily just for studio, although delegated development is, but conditional breakpoints. So now in scripts you can add breakpoints so that when you're doing script debugging, you can have those breakpoints show up in your script debugger tool. It helps you a little bit with doing debugging. And then you have context menus and extra highlighting into the script fields. I'll show you that. That's really cool. I'm a really big fan of that. And then you have delegated development. So in Studio, you can say, all right, these people are developers and they don't necessarily have to be admins. It used to be you happen to be an admin. Now you can be a developer for a specific application. So let's take a look at some of these. Hey? All right. So let's look at the Flow Designer stuff first. So here in Flow Designer, we have inline scripting available. See my wonderful naming technique. Actually, I want to do it on an action. Ooh. So here you see that I can, let's say I'm adding a field value to this update incident, right? Short description. I can now fill it out with a script, right? So as long as I return this, it's like var, and see some of the cool stuff that they're doing with the FD data trigger. I could have just said under there, but you get it, and then you return the value. Right. So whatever I might have wanted to do, I might have wanted to do something like prefix this. Right. And now this is going to be the short description with a prefix on it. Right. And that's what's going to be put into the short description field. So inline scripting, very cool. One other thing I wanted to show that I did not have in my thing is complex data inputs. Pretty cool stuff. You can now, you have the ability to do arrays in these inputs and outputs, which is highly advanced stuff. So you can have a whole array of objects as inputs and outputs. Again, they're going to that, pushing for that no code stuff. All right, the other neat thing here is inbound email triggers. So you don't need inbound actions anymore, right? This can be subject contains server alert, right? And then whatever it is you want to do, and then you've got the rest of your actions, like you can apply a flow to it, you can create the incident, whatever actions that you want to add. You've got a lot to choose from. You can do a lot of integrations and stuff like that. So create record. going to create an incident. And then we're adding field values like assignment group. And we can script that assignment group. Just fantastic stuff. All right, I can't really show you the single update set entry, but you get the idea there. So let's go over to Studio features. So the Studio, we have a notification. So I have this big long script in here, and let's say that, which really doesn't apply to this notification, by the way, I just copied a script I was working on. You can right-click on the line number and add a breakpoint or add a conditional breakpoint, which will allow you to add a condition, right? Like PGRP equals test. And if that's the case, this thing's going to insert a break in my script debugger. Here I can right-click on line 34. Here again, I can remove it or remove the condition or edit it. All right. If I can just add a standard breakpoint, again, helps in debugging. But the coolest thing to this is what they've done with this script editor. If you're familiar with it, it's this highlighting in context. So you can see here, it's just a regular glide record, right? Which you'll notice that glide record is now italicized, and I can right-click on it and show documentation. And that's going to take me right to the glide record documentation, which is awesome, right? This works at any script editor. It doesn't have to necessarily be in Studio, right? Same thing like REST message v2. Right, and it's going to show me come on, show me the documentation. Yeah, there we go. Just opens up another tab, shows you the documentation for any of this. So even as you're writing along, come on, close this. Thing is pain in the butt. All right. So if you're doing like var gr equals new glide record, all right, so you notice that it italicized glide record, but it also italicized my table. Now this is the part that I think is really the coolest thing about this is the context menu that's available for the table. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many times I've written this statement and then gone, okay, I need to gr.add query, right? And what was the name of that field? Was it source? Was it SSO source? I don't remember. And then I got to go into another screen and bring up this one. I can just right-click this, show definition, right? And in another tab, it's going to open up the definition, and I can see all the fields, basically. The other thing it will do is right-click, show data. And you guessed it, I right-click, and boom, it's going to show me all the data in that table. Just fantastically useful. I mean, That literally is gonna save me hours. I don't know about you guys. It should work for any table that you have in the system, right? So as soon as I caught that, it recognized that as the incident table, and then I can show the data. Go to the tab. Ah, that's so useful. All right, I'm going to quit gushing about how much I like that. All right, so you've got these new highlighting features, new helpers for all of this script writing and that sort of thing. So the other thing that you can do here in Studio is you can delegate development, right, to other users who may not necessarily be admins, or make it so Abraham Lincoln here has access to do some development, right? I can do reporting, or service catalogs, integrations, workflows, whatever they want in this application, mind you. We won't give them the ability to manage the ACLs because we don't trust Honest Abe for some reason. Whether or not they can do scripting, they can upgrade the app, they can publish it, whatever. Now we've got Abraham Lincoln can log in and do some development on this application. That's delegated development. Pretty fancy stuff. All right. I'm just jazzed about this. Love it. Okay. Now, let's move on. Well, let's talk about dynamic translation. So I have a whole separate video on this if you guys want to check it out, but on exactly how to set it all up. But the cool thing about this is services like IBM Cloud, Watson, and Azure offer translation services as one of the services that you can use. And you can configure your system to use this, and then you add a little decoration field, a button to the field to automatically translate the text in that field, so it works in like a multi-line text or string field. You can sign up for a free account for Azure or IBM. I know I did it for IBM because I've already used my free Azure account long ago. But I signed up for an IBM one, and they will do something like 1 million characters in translation for free, but only with Spanish. So depending on your organization, if you have one of those global organizations where you have people who speak multiple languages who are trying to send tickets to each other, and you have a language barrier, this would be a great thing to add. I think it's very cool. And let me show you. All right, let's go back here. All right, so it's a plugin, right? You have your dynamic translation, and you get your IBM or your Microsoft kind of out of the box, right? And this will, you just want to make sure that this one, whichever one you're using, either IBM or Azure, you're using as active and default, right? Then you got to get credentials, and the IBM Cloud one, I think it's cloud.ibm.com. When you sign up for these in their services, they have language translation. It's per delete. All right, so go actually to, it's under services, language translator. When you set this up, either in Azure or IBM, you'll get this API key in this URL. So you're going to need these to configure this, right? So you set up a credential for it. And the key with IBM Watson is the username is API key. The password is the API key, which you can just copy here. Configure that, configure the connection, and to do the connection, you want to have the connection URL, which you've copied from this. Right. Make sure that's active and turned on, and you're basically ready to go on that. Then come here to incident, or whatever field it is you want to have dynamic translation working on. Right. Come on. Configure dictionary. And you come here to attributes. And you see this dynamic translation enabled. You want to have that set to true. Finish loading. There you go. Yeah, so dynamic translation enabled, true. At that point, you get this cool little button. Right there. Right, see translation. That's in English, so I don't know much, but I know that phrase. Right. You hit the translation, and a little box pops up with the translated version of it. Pretty cool stuff, if you ask me. I've had in my history of doing ITSM, I've had several situations where I would love to have had this, and now it's finally a reality. All right, I think that covers the top 5. It does. So, Brittany, I think we can move on to any questions if there are any.
All right, I'll take it from here. Can you see my screen?
I see your face, your picture.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, thanks, Joe. And now I would like to cover a few follow-up items, and then we'll move on to our question and answer section. Our webcast today is part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series on ServiceNow. Our upcoming webcasts are listed on the screen. To view our most up-to-date schedule, please visit getgsi.com/ServiceNow-webcast. Check out our erptalk.com, which is a problem-solving forum where you can get your ServiceNow and other enterprise application questions answered. Stay connected with us on social media. All of our handles are currently listed on the screen. You can see our most up-to-date posts on webcasts, events, industry insights, and so much more. GSI provides an extensive free educational resources for ServiceNow community, including our weekly educational webcast, monthly newsletter called the GSI Insider, online resource center where you can access our on-demand webcasts, white papers, etc., on-site and virtual workshops. If you would like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for our upcoming webcasts, our monthly newsletter, or create an account to access our resource center, go to getgsi.com, go to the resources and events on the main menu, select ServiceNow, and then select the appropriate link on the right. All right. Now into our question and answers. Let me see. We do have a couple of questions submitted. If you would still like to submit questions, you can definitely do so. All right. So our first question is from Tom. Is the Now Mobile app used for fulfillers?
So no, I mean, obviously the fulfillers can use it like they can use the service portal, but it's the ServiceNow agent that's for fulfillers. The ServiceNow Mobile is really the service portal, so it's designed for requesters.
All right, and it looks like we do have another question here from Dave. Is there a subscription cost for dynamic translation?
No, so not with ServiceNow. That's a free plugin, but the cost comes from the translation service, so IBM Watson or Azure, and they charge you by the millions of characters translated. So probably won't need to get too large of an account there in order to get that. So not from ServiceNow.
All right. Thank you, Joe. That appears to be the end of our questions. If you, as a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey. When you exit, you'll be receiving an email with a link to our resource center on our website where you can access the recording from today's webcast, as well as a copy of the presentation. After today's webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card. Anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible. We'll notify the winner. If you have any follow-up questions, you can contact Joe or I. Our information is on the screen here. Thank you again for attending our presentation. Have a good day.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.